One night, Max wore his wolf costume and made mischief of one kind and another. His mother said, "Excuse me, wait, get off the table. I've guessed over, you're being a wild thing right now." He responded with, "Shut up! I'll eat you up!" And then he was sent to his room for being a little shit and didn't even have dinner. But that night, in Max's room, a forest grew and grew and grew until the ceiling hung with vines and the walls became the world all around. And an ocean tumbled by with a private boat just for Max. And he sailed off through night and day, in and out of weeks and almost over a year to where the wild things are. And when he came to the place of the wild things, they roared their terrible roars, they gnashed their terrible teeth, they rolled their terrible eyes, and they showed their terrible claws. Until Max said, "Shut up, be still," and he tamed them with a single magic trick. He stared into all their yellow eyes without blinking once, and they were frightened. So they called him the most wildest thing of all. They also made him king of all the wild things. "And now," cried Max, "let the wild rumpus start." "Okay, time to stop now. It's starting to get cringe," Max said, and he sent the wild things off to bed without their dinner. And Max, the king of all the wild things, was lonely. He wanted to be where someone loved him best of all. Then all around, from far away across the world, he smelled good things to eat. So, he gave up on being king of where the wild things are. But the wild things cried and shouted, "Please don't go. We'll eat you up. We love you so." And Max said, "No." The wild things roared their terrible roars and gnashed their terrible teeth. They rolled their terrible eyes and showed their terrible claws again. But Max stepped into his private boat and waved goodbye. He sailed back over a year, in and out of weeks, and through a day until he made it into the night of his very own room, where he found his supper waiting for him. And it was still hot. That was Where the Wild Things Are, written and illustrated by Maurice Sendak. Now, you may be wondering, how the hell did they take a kid's book and turn it into an hour and 40 minutes film? That's what I plan to discuss in this video, and also how it's a part of something bigger. Okay, so one day, who's a producer for this film? Tom Hanks. Tom Hanks was in a library, and he was like, "Yo, this book, Where the Wild Things Are, this book's pretty gangster, and I want there to be a film of it, and I want Mark Ruffalo to be in the film as well as a dickhead boyfriend, and his name's gonna be Adrian." Anyway, and then Tom Hanks went to his agent, and he was like, "Yo, I want to make a Where the Wild Things Are movie. I'm gonna help produce it." And their agent was like, "Yo, there's one in the oven already." And he was like, "Yo, I'm gonna put my money in that." And bada boom, bada bing, there's a film out. It has fucking Adrian in it. Jesus. Anyway, what makes this film any different from the book? Well, the book has a water monster. The film doesn't. The film has a giant dog in it. And I guess the film also has a more fleshed out message, I guess. Like the message of like being a kid and growing up it's a thing. Like when in Max's classroom, his teacher's like, "Oh, the sun's gonna die, by the way," and then that's like, you can tell that Max is constantly thinking about it, and like the first ever feeling of, "Oh, yeah, we're all gonna die, what?" Or the feeling of mortality. He feels like he realizes that, yeah, we're gonna die someday. Or whenever, your parents, you're living with or dealing with a single parent, and that parent decides to get into a relationship with someone else, and as a kid you're just like, "You're not my dad. You're not my dad. Who are you? It also fleshes out the core, I guess, idea from the book is like dealing with emotions as a kid. You just don't know how to deal with them. So you just rampage or whatever the fuck you did as a kid to deal with them. And then you have to suffer the consequences from your parents or like the people around you. And I feel like the movie does a good job of like representing it through Max and all the wild things. Like each wild thing is a different feeling that a kid would have during a rumpus. I'm gonna call it a rumpus because it's this is where the wild. As I said, each wild thing could be represented as a feeling. Carol could be the feeling of acting without thought, as because he's impulsive, he destroys all the houses, he goes to eat Max when he gets angry and upset. It could be the feeling of when you're a kid, you're just like, ah! Or Alexander, the little goat boy. He's always ignored and he's belittled a lot of the time, and that could be a representation of how Max felt when fucking Adrian was over and his mother didn't play with him because he felt ignored and blah 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 and that. Or Judith, who is always like, hey, you should be the one protecting me. Judith is the Triceratops one. She's a bitch. And that could be the feeling of like if you don't. Well, yeah, Max again going back to that same scene is like you're not good enough, and that's the feeling of when your parents aren't. You feel like your parents aren't doing enough, and the others. I don't know. I only have the brain capacity of thinking of 3 examples, but the book didn't really give each of the wild things a character, which is cool that the film did that. I mean, they kind of had to, otherwise it wouldn't have been an hour and 40 minutes long. And now the age-old question. Choco, why haven't you played FNAF yet, man? Come on. And which is better, the book or the film? Now, personally, I would prefer the film because, characters are a big thing in storytelling. And in the book, there's only Max, and Max is a bitch. Although although he's also a bitch in the film, he has other qualities to him. Like he regrets some of his actions, and he actually feels like a person or a kid, and that goes for everyone in the film. Like all the wild things, his mom, his sister, even fucking Adrian. My point is, they all feel like characters, whereas the book there's only Max, and these monsters look kind of cool.